Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. This time it comes from Police Activity on YouTube page. If you have not already, I highly recommend heading over to the Police Activity YouTube page and subscribing to their channel. They have lots of good content. In fact, when I come across most officer-involved shooting videos, I find them on Police Activity YouTube page. This particular video I found from doing a search, and the original video that I found came from the Washington, D.C. Police YouTube page. I did a video on that recording, and then I later saw on Police Activity where the same video plus additional footage was shown. So I had to go back and delete my old video to come do this video because it has footage that the DC police, for some reason, did not originally release and show. And I have some thoughts on why they didn't originally show it, and I'll get into that after we watch the video. So, without further ado, here we go.
How you doing, sir? I'm just shooting. I'm just shooting this here. You want me to move? Okay, I'm moving right now. Thank you. Hello.
Hey.
I'm just adding this.
I understand. Just get your stuff.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gone. Little adding stuff.
I understand. We can't do it here, though. We gotta do it somewhere else.
Okay.
Yep, go up the alley.
Right.
Don't do it near people's houses where they call the police.
No problem.
From the district concentration. Great focus.
Be on the lookout for your motor vehicle 2800 Benning Road. CLC, was this northeast or southeast? Northeast approaching Minnesota. Look out for gray Toyota Corolla, 4 doors, DC tag. DC tag.
Anyone in the area of 17th Street and T Street Southeast in Sector 2?
Could be there in maybe a few minutes.
I got an individual walking down the street, 1800 block of 17th Street now, red pants, black wife beater. Something in the back of his, sticking out of the back of his pants. I just stopped him for shooting up on someone's front step. And as he got up and was walking away, it looks like he might have a gun hanging out the back of his pants. Can I just have another unit? I'm going to go ahead and go over the main air now.
En route as well. Where are you at, Paul? Copy, please voice that.
I am. I just don't want to stop him until I've got another unit.
Thank you. Special Gate 603, 11 Minnesota.
I'm going to be coming from Digital Village over MLK.
Okay, I'm at Minnesota and S now. Traffic 3.
6-1, we're on Keo approaching Minnesota now.
Hey, ma'am, I was flagged down for an individual who was shooting up in someone's front yard, and as I sent them on their way, as he walked away, it looks like he might have a gun in the back of his pants or something sticking out. Actually, another unit, Minnesota S.
Minnesota and where?
S is in Sam.
Turn into assist traffic 3, Minnesota.
That's right.
D51, making a split.
Go again.
Push the lookout.
Traffic 3, red pants, black wife beater, black hat. Walking down Minnesota now, 1700 block. I'm just waiting for another unit to stop him.
There's a black male, red pants.
Yeah.
Minnesota and S like Sam. Minnesota and S like Sam.
CST 41 out, this is the unit. 7 to white, someone Minnesota at tea time. Where is he at right now?
At this time, person may have a gun in the back pants.
Units continue down this, so he's right here to my right. I'm going to initiate the stop now. Stop! 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 Traffic 3, shots fired! Traffic 3, shots fired! Traffic 3, I've shot my duty weapon. I need officers. No.
Were you hit?
No, hold on.
Okay, you're good. Come here.
Holy shit!
Come here.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Bro, sit down, brother.
Sarge! Oh my God!
Give me your gun.
Holy shit!
Give me your gun.
Okay. Sarge!
I'm gonna check you real quick,
Holy
okay?
shit, am I hit?
No. Take off your vest.
To the right leg. I need your tire block to come down.
Am I good?
Cruiser 600.
You're good.
Cruiser 600.
I saw my life.
Okay, ma'am. I need you to hold the air. Nobody needs to be communicating on the air. Unless we're both on that scene, I'm responding. I copy Cruiser 600.
Oh God.
Units restrict the air. All 60 units restrict the air.
627.
No injuries to the officer.
To the officer. One suspect struck.
Which unit?
What?
Get them away from the officers!
No citizen is going on that sidewalk near that suspect. No one. Clear the entire block.
Cross the street! Stop them! Hey, look, it's everybody,
Union has
let's go! That way!
Nobody else towards anything.
Take deep breaths. Slow breath.
Let's make sure we get the board started here. We're going to need
Did I hit him?
stand stood up and block the entire roadway.
My car's in the middle of the road.
1027, give me one.
Just give me. Okay.
Give me one on the scene.
Unless for myself, I have the officer with Ocean 10. I'll get him to you. Let's focus on. Shut down this entire block.
Here.
All right. So, as I noted earlier, the video released from the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police is shorter than the video you just watched. The official press release video does not start at this part. It starts when the officer is in his car, and it starts just a little bit before he gets on the radio and starts calling out what's going on. And then it ends when the sergeant starts to check him for injuries. I originally came across the video from the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department YouTube page. I did a video on it, and then I found this video from Police Activity that had more footage from that incident. So, I redid the video. I remember when I watched the original video, I remember thinking to myself, after he got on the radio and said that he had sent a junkie shooting up in someone's yard on his way, I remember thinking, I'd like to have seen that. And I also remember thinking, why in the hell would you even do that? So thankfully, Police Activity has found the longer version of this video. I don't know how they obtained it. I don't know if they actually did their own open records request, or if the full video is somewhere else. But I can tell you that the full video is not from the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department's YouTube page. So starting off in the beginning, this officer makes contact with this junkie sitting at the back door of someone's home, shooting up, and then sends him on his merry way without any consequences. Doesn't attempt to identify who this person is, doesn't even give a trespass warning or anything. He just tells him to go do his drugs somewhere else where he's not going to get called and have to come deal with him. That kind of blew my mind. Now, in a very liberal area like Washington, D.C., I could kind of see how this kind of crap would probably go on. And I think that this is wrong and is a contributing factor to the crime problems in D.C. When good people stand by and do nothing, bad people prevail, right? So when the police are not actively doing their jobs the way that they're supposed to be doing their jobs, bad things start to happen. That's why when you start seeing certain towns and cities get above a certain population size, and also considering some of the political makeup of the people in charge of that town, you could start to see more serious crimes occurring. And it can also be a numbers thing. The more people there are, the more instances of things happening. But overall, in those towns and cities where the population gets past a certain point, and what that certain point is, I can't definitively say, but that there's a huge difference between a place like Chicago and some little town in Indiana with a population of less than 50,000. All right. I'm sorry, Illinois. Why did I say Indiana? Illinois. Kentucky. I can use Kentucky for a great example because I live in Kentucky. Crime in Louisville is off the chain right now. Lots of murders and shootings happening up there. The crime right there is way, way, way different than, say, Glasgow, Kentucky, or Smith Grove, Kentucky, or Woodburn, Kentucky. Why? The population's different. The more people there are in Louisville, the more they are able to do stuff and get away with it because there's just not enough police up there. Whereas small town like, Glasgow or something like that, although Glasgow does have its fair share of crimes, they're just not occurring at the same rate that Louisville is, because there's a sufficient amount of police in Glasgow, Kentucky. And there's some other factors. But these cities where the police, they don't do anything, that leads to more problems. Let's take traffic enforcement, for example. Here in Bowling Green, the Bowling Green City Police, they don't do a whole lot of traffic enforcement because they're short-staffed and they're busy going call to call. They're so busy going call to call that sometimes there are calls that are holding for over 24 hours. They're very low priority calls, but still, someone called the police requesting the police to come to them, and it took over 24 hours before someone was able to get to them. They do not have the luxury, a lot of times, to do traffic enforcement. They can't sit on a particular road day after day running LiDAR to catch speeders and slow traffic down on a particular roadway. They might be able to get a highway safety grant to pay for the overtime to have an officer perform those duties, but that's for a very short duration of time. To be able to affect the change of a roadway, there has to be consistent enforcement on that roadway, and they just don't have the resources right now to do that. So drivers in Bowling Green, Kentucky are fucking crazy. They can't drive worth a shit. But if you go to some small town like Russellville, Kentucky, well, the police there, they're not extremely busy, but they still got enough time to run radar and do traffic enforcement, so not to speed through some of these smaller areas, because your likelihood of getting caught goes up. Whereas here in Bowling Green, you can go speed down Cemetery Road or Fairview, where it leads into Cemetery Road. You can speed up and down that section of the road all the time, and people often do. And the traffic situation in Bowling Green is atrocious. I hate driving around anymore. But you go to smaller towns, traffic's, the driving situation is not that bad. It's like people drive with sense. Why do they drive with sense? Because the police are there to keep their asses in check. And, people tend to do less stupid shit when the police slap their hands. In the form of slapping their hands, it's giving them citations, arresting them, etc. So in these big towns, they don't have enough police to go around. And then when stuff like this happens, well, that just perpetuates the cycle. That puts it in these criminals' minds that they can do whatever they want. They're not going to get arrested. They're not going to get a citation. They're just going to be told to go somewhere else. Now, the argument of drugs and victimless crimes is coming into play here. And I do believe that an addiction is a medical issue. I do believe that people with addictions need to get help. However, I do not fully believe that absconding them or absolving them of any consequences related to the drugs is the answer. The only drug I can think of that is a true, not just the drug, but the circumstances as well. The drug and circumstances that I fully believe is a true victimless crime is someone who has grown their own marijuana on their own property and they smoke it in their property or on their property. That to me is a true victimless drug crime. They're not hurting anybody. Now, the minute they get in a car and drive, yes, then they're putting other people at risk. The minute they want to smoke around their kids and affect them with secondhand smoke, yeah, that's a problem. But some, single adult who lives alone and they smoke in their own home, they're not hurting anybody. Now, if they're a renter and they're smoking in the apartment, when there's a policy against smoking inside the apartment, then they're hurting the landlord there, because now they're leaving the odor and stuff in there, and just like with cigarettes, and so then when they move out, that landlord is going to have to do things to make that apartment nicer for people to move into. And so it's not just the drug, but it's also the context and the circumstances involved in it. So, person, they got their own property, it's theirs. They grow their own plant, they smoke it. Sure, I will say that is a victimless crime, so long as they don't get in their car and start driving, or they're smoking it around their kids. Other drugs, no, not at all. Meth is not a victimless crime. Even if that person is in their own home and they're smoking meth, they're snorting cocaine, they may not be directly affecting someone in that moment like that, but that type of drug that they're using, it is directly affecting other people in their community. Meth doesn't fucking grow out of the ground, right? You have to make meth in a lab. And you use things like anhydrous ammonia, lithium out of batteries, lantern fluid, all kinds of just garbage that gets mixed together to produce meth. The production of it is dangerous. Those are hazardous materials. When a meth lab is made, that's now a hazmat scene. I have been to several meth labs before in the past, and they are dangerous scenes to be on because you're dealing with hazardous materials. Some meth labs blow up. Some meth labs burn down. Some people die in their meth lab without anything blowing up or burning down because of the vapors inside. The fumes is extremely toxic. So there's a safety concern for the public. Where they're manufacturing this crap. If it's some, deadbeat redneck out in the country in a trailer making the crap, that's a whole lot better for the community versus someone doing a lab operation in a hotel room where they're going to leave that hotel room after that cook and then someone else goes into it, or doing a shake and bake in their car and then they get into a car wreck and other responders have to deal with them and then get exposed to that crap. But aside from the manufacturing process being dangerous, the players involved with this, they're dangerous. They're criminals. And they're not just criminals based off the fact that they're dealing in illicit drugs. They're doing other criminal things. They're stealing shit. They're hurting people. They're robbing people. You can't just get into selling drugs like it's a pyramid scheme kind of thing, It's not like selling Girl Scout cookies. You just can't decide, I'm going to go, I'm tired of working at the cell phone store selling cell phones to people. I'm going to go sell meth and make more money. And then, I'm going to get this much meth and then I'm going to get someone else to go sell some stuff with me too. And I'll make money off them selling it. It don't work like that. Like, you just can't jump into that business. All right. Contrary to what the popular TV show Breaking Bad makes people think, you just can't oh, this is a business venture, I'm gonna jump into it. No. The people who sell these drugs are miscreants. They were miscreants to begin with, and they've been hurting people all along. They've been burglarizing, robbing, stealing stuff, victimizing other people. And so when there is a a need for this drug, an addict who gets addicted to it and they have a need for it and they want it, that's the demand. And the people in the business of supplying that demand are bad people. They're menaces to society. They're a clear and present danger to society. In places, in large cities, the murder rates are largely influenced by the drug trade. And of course, everyone labels them as gang shootings and whatnot. Yeah, they are a lot of times gang members and whatnot, but it's the drugs that are the central point in it. These gang members are not shooting each other over tennis shoes. Ah, your Jordans look better than mine. Pow, pow, pow. Like that's just not happening. They're not feuding over stupid shit. They're feuding over sales territory, right? So think about it as like a shopping mall, right? You got the left side of the mall, and then you got the right side of the mall. Well, the left side of the mall sells product A, and that left side of the mall does really good, right? Well, some people from the right side of the mall, they also want to sell product A, but they might also sell some product B. Well, they start venturing over to the left side of the mall and start selling over there. Well, the people who've been on the left side of the mall, who are making X amount of money, start to notice that their same customers aren't coming back because they're going over to the people on the right side of the mall who've moved a little bit closer. Well, the people on the left side of the mall, they ain't cool with that. So they go shoot it out with those people who came from the right side of the mall. And then all the shoppers, all the regular people just going to these other stores where they're not buying that crap. They're buying products XYZ. Well, they're caught in the crossfire. And so this gang turf shit is a clear and present danger to society. All the key players involved in the drug trade are piece of shit criminals. Like, there's no redeemable qualities about them. Like, there is no Walters in the drug world, some good, nice-hearted science teacher who said, oh, I'm going to make this a business venture. Like, they're all pieces of shit, all right? And they've been pieces of shit because they were raised by pieces of shit. It is generation after generation of shitheads in this drug world, in this crime world. So although that meth user who just smokes his meth in his car, or let's take the car out of the equation, let's stay home. The meth user who smokes meth in the home, although the act of them smoking that meth is not affecting anyone, they're all by themselves, it's not harming anyone, their usage of that drug, the demand for that drug, is keeping these other violent offenders in business and fighting with each other in the streets. This idea, this notion that I see it so many times, in news articles when people commenting on them, someone can go to jail for X amount of years for just selling some drugs, but blah, 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 they won't get this much time for blah, 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 blah. No, the fucking act of just them selling a drug is not what has gotten them a long sentence. It's all the other shit they did before they got caught for that fifth time or fourth time for selling drugs, or they might have just got caught for selling these drugs, but they've done all kinds of other shit before then, like breaking into homes and stealing shit, shoplifting, robbing people, armed robbery. They've been in the system multiple times. These are just not a one-time occurrence kind of thing. This wasn't some random person who said, screw this, I'm not flipping burgers anymore, I'm going to go sell some crack cocaine, and threw down the spatula at McDonald's and walked down to the street corner and signed up to go sell crack. No, that's not a one-time deal. These drug dealers are people who've been involved in crime from an early age. They're scum. And by keeping those people in business, the users are still contributing to bad parts of society. So although them smoking meth, smoking a crack pipe in their own home doesn't directly affect someone, it is affecting people, and it is affecting the rest of the community. So I know that's a bit of a long rant, but yeah, it happens. So this officer decides that he's not going to do anything to this guy. He's just going to send him on his way and go about his business.
How you doing?
Get your stuff.
Okay, thank you. I'm just adding this.
I understand. Just get your stuff.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay. Empty bail.
Yep, go up the alley.
Right.
Don't do it near people's houses where they call the police.
No problem.
So it was either within this moment that he noticed the guy had a gun, or it was after he got in his car and was driving down the road following him around that he noticed he had a gun. I have tried to watch the video multiple times
Go up
at
the
this
alley.
point,
Don't
and
do
then
it near
pause it at random points, see if I can see a gun.
Yep, go up the
There
alley.
does appear to be a bulge in his back shirt area around his waistline.
Yep, go up the alley.
Right.
right in there, but you can't see something very definitively. The quality of the video is a little down, and then of course you've got the blur circle here interfering with it, and he's got a black shirt on, so a black gun with a black shirt. It's kind of camouflaged, right? So you can't see very much from this angle, and we're in the shadows. He gets out in the sunlight, but he's got some distance on him, and then the blur thing kind of goes down to that area. So I don't know if it was within this parking lot that he noticed the gun, or he noticed it now. It's possible he noticed it to begin with, because he does get in his car and he very quickly gets in and gets turned around to get behind this guy. So it's either he noticed it there and then tried to get in quickly to follow him, or he just now decided to get in the car quickly and follow him to make sure the guy just didn't try to circle around and go behind him and go back to the spot he was at. He could be following him to make sure that he does go to an alley, or that he just doesn't go to someone else's doorstep. Like, he could just be like that little persistent nag, so to speak, staying near the guy to make the guy keep walking, if that makes sense. And then, as he's being this nag, this nuisance to the dude, as he's keeping him walking, then he could have noticed the gun during this point. So I'm not sure which one occurs. All I do know for sure is that the time gap between him talking to him right here in person and the guy walking by him, up until the point of him actually getting on the radio and calling it out, like, that's a pretty good jump in time right there. So not really sure when he noticed the gun. None of the news releases indicate that. He finally gets on the radio and calls for backup. And I think that's a pretty good tactic to use. If he decided to get out by himself and engage this person, or not engage, but make contact with this person again and address the fact that he could see a gun, I think the same thing would have happened. I think this would have turned into a gunfight, just like it ended up turning into a gunfight. And if you're going to a gunfight, it's always better to bring other people who have guns. So this is what he's doing. He's bringing all his friends with guns to this incident that could turn into a gunfight, increasing his odds of success, right? Good tactic. I like that. Now, was this intentional? Like, was he thinking from this mindset of, oh, it's better to bring more people with guns because we have a higher chance of winning? Or was it he was a little too timid and afraid to do something on his own? I don't know. That's I guess the $1 million question, so to speak. You can make your own guesses on that, but that's, like I said, that's the question. Was this a well thought out plan, a good tactic to come up with, or was this because he was too afraid to do anything by himself? I'll leave that one up to you. Now he's driving along, and as he's driving along in this video, I've noticed a couple of things that I guess I wanted to address before we get into the actual gunfight itself. All right. So I don't know what it is with these agencies that put these light and siren control boxes on the dashboard. I don't understand that. This guy is in an SUV. He's in a Ford Explorer. There is ample space in the console between the two seats up front for this thing to be mounted. It does not need to be mounted on the dashboard, and it should not be mounted on the dashboard like that. I don't know. I don't get it. I think it's stupid to do that. During the daytime, you wouldn't think much of it, but at nighttime, these little LED indicators right here, they don't dim. They stay a constant brightness, right? So your dashboard cluster here, it will. You can control the dim on it. So at nighttime, if you wanted to, you could park, turn your headlights off and your parking lights off, and then dim your dashboard cluster, and that would cause the dashboard to dim. The little accent lights within the steering wheel will dim down. The little lights over here on the door will dim down. The lights on the dashboard itself, the temperature controls, those will dim down. These lights, they're not going to dim down. And then these buttons right here, they're backlit, so they have a glow to them. And at nighttime, having this mounted right here and these lights kind of glowing back at your face, I just don't think that's a very good option. This thing should be mounted down between the seats and the normal console. And then the issue of the whole 18-wheeler trucker looking CB mic thing. Like, obviously this ain't a CB, it's the PA mic for the siren. But having it up here like this just looks tacky. Like, I think this looks stupid. And it's a potential hazard if he turns too hard or whatnot. This damn microphone can come flying off and hit him in the head. So that whole setup's stupid. I don't care for it. The cell phone in the windshield, I'm not a big fan of those little suction cup things that go in the windshield to hold your phone, because that is a windshield obstruction. And you've already got enough obstructions as it is with the pillars right here. And then if you got the spotlight right here, and depending on how you got the spotlight, positioned, this can kind of block your view a little bit. And then you put this big ass thing right there, that can block your view even more of things over in this area. So not a big fan of doing that. There's other alternatives, and one alternative that I've been using for a few years now is a product from Night Eyes. Night Eyes is spelled Niteyez, Night Eyes, and the product is called the Steely, Steeelie. It's a two-part product. The first piece is a clip with a ball on it, and that clip is made to clip into the air vent of your car. So where you see my mouse circling at, the little slats right there on the air vent is where this clip can clip into. And it's a pretty strong clip. It has a lot of good tensile strength to it. It's not loose or anything. Once you clamp that thing down, like, it's not coming off. You have to pull really hard to get that clip to come off that slat, or you just basically have to release the clamp. But it'll clamp on one of these little slats, and on the end of it is a round ball, kind of like almost like a larger marble, I guess you could say. And the second part attaches to your phone. You actually glue it to the back of your phone case or your phone, and it's magnetic, and it's recessed in the middle. It's got a little dimple, and you can take that little magnetic mount and click it to that little metal ball, and then you can rotate the phone and angle it around the circumference of that ball any way you like. And then when you need it, you just lift the phone off the mount. The magnet's not that super strong. It's not like it's a death grip on there, but it's strong enough to hold it in its orientation that you want, but light enough in strength that you can easily just peel it off. I see that as the better option for having a smart device within good eyesight range, but also not obstructing your view out of the windshield. And so when you think about when you're driving and you're looking out the windshield, but you look down to your speedometer, that same plane, that horizontal plane, is within the air vents, right? So, looking at the speedometer right here, if you zoom to the left horizontally, boom, there's an air vent. If you go to the right and just a little bit higher is an air vent. So while you're driving, looking down at your speedometer can be just as easy as looking down at your phone and looking at the map app on there and seeing where you're at or what turn you need to take. Or seeing notifications pop up and just kind of looking down and see if that's something that you need to address or not. And it still allows you to maintain a safe vision of the roadway. So that's something I'd recommend. But anyway, enough of little gear kind of things. Let's get into the part y'all came here for, the gunfighting part. So he gets out, and there are more buddies down the street here. We got a few cop cars down here, and some of these cops are getting out. The suspect, as you know, is right over here in the red pants, and then there's another random person walking down the sidewalk. Well, this officer gets out and immediately starts to make contact.
Stop.
Of course, the guy doesn't follow his instructions. He keeps going, oh, and I just now noticed there's a little kid on what appears to be a tricycle. So it's like you see something new every time you go through the video. You can see the officer's shadow here and what he's doing.
Stop.
This guy's starting to get his gun out and take a combative stance.
Stop.
The officer has got his gun out. He's still issuing verbal commands, and then they get into a gunfight, obviously. So I can back this up and freeze frame it.
Stop. Stop. Stop.
All right, so this freeze frame right here, look down at the shadow on the ground. When this gunfight happens, this officer turns and starts to run away from the target while simultaneously shooting at the target. I don't think that's a good option. For one, you've gone to a one-handed grip versus a two-handed grip. We all know a two-handed grip is more superior to a one-handed grip. If they were in a more rural area and there is more trees and hills and stuff to catch bullets, maybe this part wouldn't matter a whole lot. But in an urban environment, for sure, without a doubt, every single round you fire matters. And when every single round matters, we want good shots, and we get good shots with a good two-handed grip on the gun. Even when you have a two-handed grip on the gun, you can still see missed rounds in a gunfight with trained people. Happens all the time across the country. Police get into gunfights, even when they take a good two-handed grip, they can still miss the target. It happens. Go into a one-handed grip. You increase those chances of missing by a lot. What numerical figure that is, I couldn't even begin to tell you. But I can tell you that it does increases your chances of missing your target. In an urban environment, you don't want to miss too many rounds because there's a lot of people around. The other issue by turning like this is a weak link in the armor that he's wearing. When you are standing square with the target, think of a shooting range, right? You got the target in front of you and you're standing there, your hips facing directly towards it, and you've got armor on. if that target shoots at you, that armor is covering your vital organs. Now, of course, your face is exposed, but no one's come up with a nice lightweight armor system for your face and head that you can wear on a daily basis and it not suck. But as far as your chest, your thoracic cavity, all your vital organs are very well covered. So if that target shoots, a few rounds at you and hits the chest area, that armor should stop it. Now, if you turn sideways, either to your left or to your right, and you got your right side exposed to them, or you got your left side exposed to them, there's a gap in the coverage of that armor that protects your vital organs. From the front panel to the back panel, there is a gap around your armpit area. Rounds can go completely through your arm and into your chest through your armpit area and go into your heart and kill you. With his arm extended like this and shooting, a bullet could just go straight into his armpit area and then go in through his thoracic cavity into his heart and kill him. So this is where being square to your target mindset comes into play. And there have been plenty of police officers across the country and the world, for that matter, who've been killed in this kind of manner. A round entered into their thoracic cavity from an area where the armor doesn't cover. It actually happened in my town. A Bowling Green police officer, several years back, a bullet went in through his side where the armor doesn't cover, and it went into his heart and killed him. So being square to your target, that mindset. He also had this vehicle to utilize as cover. Now, vehicles are not the best thing for cover, but when it's the only damn thing around, you don't have a huge boulder to get behind. You don't have like a depression in the ground to get down into, and you got a lot of dirt between you and the bullets, or you got big ass trees to get behind. Then yeah, okay, a car is going to be something that you can use to get behind. Like I said, they're not the greatest forms of cover because bullets can very easily go through most parts of a car. But if it's the only thing you got, it's the only thing you got. And he could have used this car to his advantage, stack the pillars, keep as much of the pillars in the car between him and the guy while he's shooting around barricade and putting rounds on target. He chose not to do that. Instead, he just chose to turn, fire one-handed, run across the street to the sidewalk. And in my opinion, it would have been better if he just would have went to a two-handed grip, start to utilize the car as cover, and just start delivering rounds on this guy. And of course, this is where the talk of force-on-force training comes into play. So we can get really great at the fundamentals of firearms training by being on the range multiple times a year, spending several man hours on the range, firing a lot of rounds, become very good. But that's not the end-all be-all of good firearms training. You also need to have good force-on-force training using marking cartridges. Get a person to think critically under stress and make good decisions under stress, like going for cover, things like that. I don't know what the training regimen is for the Washington, D.C. police, but partly based off what I'm seeing here, I would say if they do force-on-force training, it's very minimal and they don't do a whole lot of it. And I would say it shows. Which that's the thing that happens. Police departments are not very well funded, and some of them, depending where they're at, they're defunded. when there's stupid people in charge. But even when there's not stupid people in charge, the budgets are not always the greatest, and so they're limited with how much money they can spend on training. So, contrary to what Hollywood makes you think and what people are led to believe, the police are not. They're not wizards, right? They're not ninjas. They get some training, but they don't get all the good training. And I really wish that budgets could be changed and that more could be put into this kind of training, because it's important. Anyway, moving on.
Traffic 3, shots fired! Traffic 3, shots fired! Traffic 3, I have shot my duty weapon. I've shot my duty weapon. I need officers. No.
Were you hit?
No, hold on.
Okay, you're good. You're good. Come here.
Holy shit!
Come here. Come here.
My God. Oh my God.
Bro, sit down, brother.
Sergeant. Oh my God.
Give me your gun. Give me your gun.
All right. So this sergeant recognized the fact that this dude is having an adverse reaction. He's having an emotional breakdown, a panic attack. And he's got his gun in his hand. This officer very carefully gets that gun away from him before he could do something stupid like cause a negligent discharge. So in this extreme emotional duress that he's experiencing, he might not have maintained that cognitive mindset of maintaining trigger discipline, maintaining indexing with his trigger finger. During this emotional distress, he could have very easily allowed his finger unconsciously to rest on the trigger and then cause a negligent discharge. And that round could have hit this concrete sidewalk, ricocheted, and gone straight across the street and hit one of those officers over there. Or it shrapnel down into the concrete and send the fragments of the jacket into his legs or the sergeant's legs. Or it ricochet on the sidewalk and go across the street and hit that little kid that was on the tricycle. So this sergeant did he did a good job in recognizing the fact that this dude is going through some stuff. He's got his gun out in his hand still, and he needs to secure that gun before something bad happens with it. So he takes that gun and he secures it. And then the next thing.
Shit!
Give me your gun.
Okay.
I'm going to check you real quick, okay?
Holy shit, am I hit?
No. Take off your vest.
Next thing he does is he checks him for injuries. There have been a lot of cases where during a gunfight and immediately following the gunfight, a person did not know that they had been shot because they did not feel the pain. They had so much adrenaline pumping, so much endorphins pumping through their body that they never felt that bullet enter them. So following a deadly physical encounter like this, where shots have been fired, or you've wrestled around on the ground with someone and the scene is now safe for you to do so, you need to check yourself for injuries. If you're with other people, coworkers, you need to check each other for injuries. There's been multiple times where people have been shot during a gunfight and they never knew it. There's been times where people were stabbed in a fight and they never knew they were stabbed. They just thought that they were punched a couple times. You'd be amazed about how many times you hear about that kind of stuff. So when it's safe to do so, you need to treat injuries, right? So we fight, assess, scan, top off, and then we can talk and treat injuries, or take cover, then talk and treat injuries if need be. So You can do this systematically, like a quadrant, so to speak. Break the body into 4 quadrants and search for those quadrants for blood, looking for the life sauce. So you can take your hands, start with the person's left leg, and kind of like when you're patting a person down, you start from the foot and go all the way up to the groin area. You pull your hands back, check for blood. If there's no blood, go to the next leg. Start from the bottom, run both hands up along the leg, get to the groin area, pull the hands back, check for blood. If none, go to their arms. Now, if they're short-sleeved, then you can check up around the sleeved area. But if there's no sleeve, if there's short sleeve, then you should obviously see if there's blood on the forearm and whatnot. But you can still check those areas because sometimes you might not have very profuse bleeding. So still run hands along those extremities, check for blood, and then pat down the back, check for blood, and then pat down the chest and abdomen area, check for blood, and don't forget about the head. Run your hands through their hair on top of their scalp and look at your hands and check for blood. If they have an outer vest on, go ahead and take that vest off because a round could have made it through an area where there's no coverage from the vest, or hell, the round could have went through the vest. And so you take that vest off, you can check that area for blood and go from there. If they have a concealed vest on, just go ahead and untuck the uniform shirt and unzip it or unbutton it, however it's configured, and take the vest under them off and check them. Make sure that there's no bleeding, because if they have any injuries, we want to treat them right away. So this sergeant, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He secures the gun when he notices this officer having extreme emotional duress, and then he starts immediately checking him for injuries to see if he needs to be treated. As he's checking him, you can't see anything because the camera that's on his vest is pointed at the ground, but you can hear in the background some stuff going on. They do a lot of audio beeping.
Get them away from the officers.
That right there. Get them away from the officers. Back up.
No citizen is going on that sidewalk near that suspect. No one.
And then saying no citizen needs to go to that suspect. And then he's calling for the block to be cleared. So, although we can't see what's going on, we can hear what's going on, and it sounds like some fuckery. It sounds like a bunch of assholes with probably their cell phones out, all gravitating towards this scene and interjecting themselves into something that they don't need to be getting involved in, and just causing a problem. They are adding more chaos to a scene that already has chaos and doesn't need any more chaos. Yes, here in America, we have the First Amendment right. It's a good thing. However, it is not an exemption for you to be an asshole or to trample through a crime scene. The First Amendment does talk about the freedom of the press. And anyone can be the press. You don't have to be an actual large company news team to qualify as the press. You can be an individual. You can be a one-man shop, one person, one journalist, and you're still the press, and you still have the freedoms to cover stories as you wish. I highly doubt that any of the people on that street are people who would identify as a journalist, but they would be quick to say they have the First Amendment right to record and do that. But whether they are a true, legit journalist or they're not, they're just a regular person, or even if they are a big, large news company with video cameras and a news reporter on the scene, freedom of the press does not mean that you are exempt from rules, from laws. That is an active crime scene. They have to preserve that crime scene and document things so that it can be fully investigated to determine if someone needs to be charged with a crime. The act of shooting a gun at someone is a crime until it has been fully investigated and decisions have been made to say that, hey, this was a justified use of physical force against another person. The law comes from the mindset that any force that you use against a person is wrong. But there are exemptions, or rather, there are justifications for using physical force or deadly physical force against a person. But there has to be that process. There has to be that investigation. And when you got people trampling through the crime scene, kicking shell casings out of the way or doing other things, then they're destroying that scene, they're tampering with physical evidence, and they're hurting the integrity of that overall investigation. So those people who are undoubtedly running up and trying to rubberneck and get the phone out and record everything, they're just causing a problem, and problems need to be dealt with. I've seen this in other videos where the people will congregate near what's going on and they'll get super close and then they'll start shouting at the police and yelling at them. They're instigating. They're borderline rioting at that point. I hate seeing that crap. Those people are extremely stupid in my opinion. And I would like to see in those cases where they are hindering the investigation, they are causing a disturbance, they are acting disorderly. If they don't want to follow basic instructions like get back and go over there, then they just need to be physically made to get back and go over there, wherever there may be. Pepper spray, I believe, is a great motivator. And I would like to see in these videos where the police have had to use some kind of force against someone and now they're trying to secure the crime scene, and these people come up with their cell phones and they're all getting all super close and, blabbing about their rights. I would like to see that once some verbal commands were given and they were not heeded to, I'd like to start seeing people start getting sprayed. And I think that would change people's reactions overall all across the nation when videos of that kind of stuff start coming out. And, you got it doesn't matter where you're at in the country. If you know that the response, that if you don't get the hell back, you're going to get sprayed, well, then you'll probably start seeing a lot less people run up on the scene and get 5 feet away with their phone, sticking their phone out, trying to record everything and putting other people at risk. But we don't see that in this because the camera's facing down into the grass, and there's no other footage from any of the other officers. But just hearing what's going on in the background, that's a pretty good indication that some of that stuff's probably going on. People are getting too close and rubbernecking and recording and trying to interject themselves into something that they have nothing to do with. Their presence there isn't helping. It's hurting. They decide to get out of there and move away from the scene. Now, either he's doing this to get him away from the scene and separate him from other people, like normal investigative procedures are done, or because the scene is becoming a little unsafe because of all these nut jobs around. He does walk him down the sidewalk and takes him to another vehicle.
Car's in the middle of the road.
Give me one.
Just give me. Okay.
On the scene.
Unless for myself, I have the officer with Ocean 10. I'll get him to you. Let's focus on. Shut down this entire block.
Here.
And he gets into the nice Durango. I have to say, a little sidetrack note here, the Durangos are a lot nicer than the Explorers. But anyway, he sets him in the vehicle and he gets him separated from everyone else. And that's a normal procedure. But then he also goes ahead and shuts off his camera. And this is where the video ends. And you'll see a lot of agencies that have policies in place where they shut the officer's camera down following the shooting. Normally, it's a supervisor that will verbally indicate to them to turn their camera off. Or in cases like this, you'll see the supervisor actually do it themselves. That is a good tactic as well. And you would probably hear some other people say, "Oh, that's wrong. They're trying to hide stuff." Blah 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 blah. No, they're not. They're not trying to hide things and tamper with evidence or anything like that. They are recognizing the fact that following a deadly physical encounter, the stimulus response, fight or flight, causes a huge adrenaline dump. Adrenaline is a drug. So the aftermath of a deadly physical encounter, a person is under the influence of a drug called adrenaline. And you could not have your internal filter working correctly when you have a lot of adrenaline coursing through your body. You could make an excited comment or say something that you normally wouldn't say, and that could be damaging to you or damaging to the image of you or the agency. You know, anything you say can and will be used against you. So this is why the cameras are being turned off, because obviously, you know, this person who has had to use deadly physical force has committed the act of a homicide. Now, until this is investigated fully, they don't know if he's guilty or innocent, but he has to be treated like everyone else, and he has to have the same rights as everyone else. So his fifth constitutional amendment comes into play here, where he has a right to not self-incriminate. So the cameras get turned off at that point, or after a shooting. And that's a good policy to have. That's a good tactic to have. It's his right not to self-incriminate himself or make any statements that could incriminate him on anything. And he hasn't done anything wrong. He acted lawfully. We can see that in the video. But it's also his right to save himself from any kind of embarrassment if he made some kind of off-the-cuff kind of comment or something like that while under the influence of a drug called adrenaline. So that covers about everything I was wanting to talk about. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.